This is rough. This is really rough. It's dehumanizing because, like, I'm literally a prisoner in my body. Yeah, I've
And
read On Death and Dying. The past that you had and the future that you imagined for yourself, it's not, it's changed now. You
yeah,
know, I'm not the same person that walked into that Rite Aid in June of 2021.
it would have been easier if you had gotten shot a few years ago. We know how to deal with a gunshot wound. It would have been easier if you had gotten stabbed or hit by a car. It would have been easier if you had cancer.
Yeah, that's what Sean Barkovich said.
Right.
Like cancer patients are better. Like all the funding and the awareness.
The last
And
thing
just
you want to be is a vaccine injured person because there's
yeah,
no help.
When you experience deep suffering, it really it strikes at the core of your understanding of, or what you think is your understanding of how reality works.
you don't want to forget who you are, and you don't want to forget your life story, even if it's painful. Because if you have the courage to face your life story with God and with determination and with continuation, you can draw things out of there that will make you and the world much stronger than you otherwise could have been.
You both are so articulate and have such a wisdom about you, your age, your experience, all that you've gone through. I don't know if you've considered writing a book, but I just really feel that you have a powerful message. Welcome to the React 19 podcast, where we bring awareness and support to the COVID-19 vaccine injured and discuss the science, research, and laws that affect all of us. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. I'm Ann Forty, the host of the React 19 podcast, and today my guest is Andre Cherry. Back in early 2021, Andre was a vibrant and healthy college student who loved to play the piano, was a composer, published author, artist, and an active member in his church. He, like many others, stepped up to do what they were asked to do for the greater good, to take care of the community and get vaccinated. 2 hours after his second Moderna shot in June of 2021, his life changed dramatically. In a previous interview, Andre stated, "My life, as I knew it, has reached a total standstill. I have become a prisoner of my own body." Andre's here today with us to share what life has been like over the last 4 years, and also to talk about his role in a new documentary called Follow the Silenced, which will be premiering next Saturday, March 15th, at the Santa Monica Film Festival in Hollywood, California. Andre, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you for having me, Ann.
I was going to list out all of your medical issues in my introduction, but that list is so long and entailed that I just thought it best to have you just start at the beginning. So, if you just please take us back to 2021, share with us what life has been like for you over the last 4 years, and how you continue to just persevere. So I hand the mic to you. Please tell us about Andre Cherry and what life has been like.
Like you said, after my second Moderna shot in June of 2021, my life got flipped upside down. I started experiencing tremors in my left arm. I did a televisit with with my what's the word?
Primary care.
Yeah, my primary caregiver. At the time, had a visit in the emergency room a few days later because the tremors were in both of my arms and they were persistent for 10 to 12 hours. The doctors at the emergency room thought that I was suffering from dehydration, and they tested me for rhabdomyolysis, a disease where your muscle tissue gets like disintegrates and enters your bloodstream. If it's left untreated, it can kill you because it wreaks havoc on your kidneys. But I tested negative for that. I tested negative for fatigue and dehydration. They told me to stock up on electrolyte water once my tremors stopped, and they discharged me within the night. As the weeks went on, I started experiencing tremors in my legs. No, it started off like it was just like they would happen while I was sitting, but soon they would happen while I was standing as well, which made it very difficult to walk. I had to borrow a wheelchair from a family friend to start getting around, like in less than a month after I was vaccinated. Um, I, from that point, saw several movement specialists, neurologists. I've been to physical and occupational therapy. I did that for physical therapy for about, what, 9 months. And unfortunately, although my physical therapist was sympathetic to my situation and was working with me and my family to try and figure out root causes of my movement issues, the routines that we did only ended up making my symptoms worse. I ended up gaining this uh, the symptoms of dystonia and flaccid paralysis,
And
and
could you
bulismus.
just briefly explain, and for those who might be listening in, can you kind of explain briefly what that means, what those terms mean, and what that does to your body?
Okay, so with flaccid paralysis, it's where basically I lose complete control over like a muscle group or a muscle, and it just like I'm limp. Like for instance, right now my legs are limp, my arms are limp, my neck it's almost completely there, which is why I'm not quite looking at the camera straight. If any of you have seen videos of me in other events, you might have seen me with a harness or a collar around my neck or both. That was to help me remain upright in my wheelchair because otherwise I'd just be slumped over like a rag doll. Uh, Dystonia is basically the opposite, where my muscles become rigid involuntarily. It can happen where it's like my limbs or my face could contort in weird ways, or just my arms and legs could like be stuck bent or stuck straight. Bulismus, not hemibulismus. Hemibulismus would be like a disorganized, involuntary thrashing movements on one side of the body. I have it on both sides of the body, and in extreme cases, it's what, dyskinesia, right?
No, Bulismus is an extreme form of chorea.
Ah,
That
yes,
that's what it's called.
with a CHORR, not the nation Korea,
Yeah,
the medical term. Korea, CHORREA.
yeah. His Bulismus, it has disorganized and organized movements where it can just be one arm thrashing about, or his body can move in sequence, running him into walls or throwing punches. We've had to patch the holes. We've had to patch holes in walls that have been left after ballistic episodes so many times that like it's hard to lose count. Well, it's very easy to lose count rather, and it makes him dangerous. I would say it's hard to deal with. He can be a danger to himself and to other people, and a lot of the hospital personnel or the specialized facilities that we've gone to were underprepared or just chose to not acknowledge it as serious.
Yes. Um, that's part of the reason why I'm not able to go to the premiere of uh, Follow the Silenced next week. My symptoms, like, not only is the list long, the list of triggers is also long. Temperature change, atmospheric pressure, pressure applied to the skin, heat or cold applied to the skin, repetitive movements, exertion. So basically anything, and just like they could just happen because they happen. So I like for those reasons I can't take a plane because I'd be in a cabin like crowded with people with no guarantees that I'll be seated next to Christian or my mom who'd be going with me. And like if I punch somebody involuntarily, that opens me up for a lawsuit, and you know
retaliation, all kinds of things.
Yeah. Uh,
The temperature change between here and California, similar to like here in Texas as well, is just like it's a lot.
yeah.
And mix in with that jet lag and the medicines that we have to carry and make sure
And take actively.
and take throughout the day. Like currently, he's on a new protocol that he has to be on every hour on the hour for 8 hours a day. That's in addition to the regular medications that he takes at four separate times during the morning, noon, evening, and bedtime.
Yes.
So it's a lot of medications. It's a lot of oversight. There's a lot of equipment that needs to be available. We need space and um, a level of understanding that doesn't seem to be present. And some of that is normal because we're in a very abnormal situation. And some of that is just, at least to me, it seems to be callousness on the part of the medical industry and many of the doctors and personnel that we've dealt with.
Well, I in one of the interviews that I previously watched, and I just want to let anyone listening in, I'm going to link all the interviews that Andre has been in. I'll link them in the show notes because there's so much information. But in one of those interviews, it was either you or your mom. You said, that medical professionals would literally look away. They did not want to acknowledge you, basically, because nobody knew what to do. And you just talked about Christian, the callousness, and for again those people listening in, Christian is Andre's brother, who, again, in previous interviews, it is so clear that you have just been his constant companion. I think Juan talked about how, you know, your family is quite incredible, but I mean, the way that you have just stood by Andre through this all. I know I've just touched on like three different things right there, but I guess first of all, let's talk about the lack of acknowledgement, especially in the beginning. Has that changed at all? Are you getting any more acknowledgement?
Personally, this is just my opinion. Andre can speak for himself. I don't feel as though the acknowledgement has changed.
Mm.
Um, and to what you said earlier, that people didn't know what to do, I've had to think a lot about that. And the perspective I have now is that while they didn't have a solution, there were things that they knew to do, which they neglected to do actively. They knew to report to theirs. They chose not to. They knew that Andre was in distress. They chose to lie about him being in the kind of distress that he was in, and they chose not to investigate. They understand the scientific method. They should be more trained on that than me. They neglected to apply that in their clinical practice and assessment of Andre. And instead, they went for insults. They inadvertently called my mom old and told him to wait like 40 years to get an answer. You know what I mean? Uh,
What?
it's very silly, some of the situations we've been in. One moment, please. I have to go get him more medicine.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
sure.
on the hour alarm thing. He'll be back. Yeah, I to echo Christian, like um a lot of the negative aspects of medical care that I've experienced, I think has more to do with apathy or what's the word?
Negligent? I
Slightly
don't.
edging on antagonism,
Okay.
because it like my condition is literally politically incorrect,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's more lucrative for people in the medical industry to push the lies and the narratives that the insurance companies and big med and big pharma want them to push and are paying them to push. I have been seeing Dr. Corey for a, a little over a year now. And if to those who are listening, if you haven't heard of him, he is a wonderful, wonderful man. He has been the only constant caregiver in my experience that has been not only been actively investigating my uh, my illness, but has been doing his utmost to do whatever he can to treat it. Even though we only meet via televisit, he's always coming at it with from every angle he knows how. He's helped ease the financial burden of my treatment many times. He's been very generous. He's a very kind man, and he's just been a he he's great. Uh,
Yeah, he was
it's a shame
truly.
how the American Medical Association has discredited him and has discarded him for his stance on the crisis at hand.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm glad to hear that you have connected with him. And have has anything improved over the last year? I mean, has there been anything that is helping you where you feel like, okay, I'm moving in a different direction than I was, 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
We have seen some slight progress. It's been very slow, very incremental. I take a lot of medicine, and what a lot of it does is just take a little bit of the edge off. Like I there are days where I have like really good days because I have episodes multiple times a day, pretty much every day. The intensity and frequency of those episodes can change from day to day. The symptoms that I experience during those episodes can change from day to day. But there are days where my quality of life is better than others, and that is due in large part to the like the most helpful medicines I'm taking are uh what's the word?
Ivermectin.
Are ivermectin, cromolyn, catodafin, ivermectin, and clonazepam. I said ivermectin twice, didn't I? Those are the ones that we've tested and we've proven like those help me out the most. When I don't take them, things get worse, and you know we
Have
don't
you
want things to get worse.
No, no. Have you considered or has it been suggested IVIG treatment? Has that been any? I mean, I've just heard from other people who've been on it, obviously like Bree or Shelley. Has that been a possible suggestion?
It's been suggested. We tried subcutaneous IG because like to walk you through this. Like getting a needle in my arm is a Herculean task for any caregiver. I feel sorry for them when they have to do it because beforehand they take your blood pressure and the blood pressure cuff puts pressure on my arm. So guess what that means? Symptoms. If their hands are cold at the time, guess what that means? Symptoms. They have to sanitize the area where they're going to put the needle in, and also like squeeze my arm to find the vein to put the needle in. Which guess what that means? More symptoms. So once everything's calmed down and they can get a needle in, what was it? 2 3 years ago, I no 2 years ago at Dr. Corey's recommendation, I went to Ithaca to see his medical partner, Dr. Scott Marsland, to get a stem cell infusion therapy.
Okay.
And the ballistic episodes I was having every day for like what, 3 days, Christian?
Yeah.
Every day for 3 days at his office. They lasted hours, and Christian was literally wrestling me all throughout the office. I looked like a man possessed. Um, it was very difficult. So the idea with the IVIG was to start with subcutaneous IG first, which would like it just be needles be put into my adipose tissue, my fat tissue, so it wouldn't be as invasive as a IV thing. Let the immunoglobulin do its work, and once I'm more stable, then move on to IVIG. So we tried the SCIG twice, and my symptoms actually got worse.
Oh,
So
Can I have some context?
go ahead.
Okay, so for further context on the situation with the subcutaneous IG, the time we had spoken to Dr. Corey previous to our application of that modality, he was talking about different ways we could try to decrease his overall symptom profile to try and ensure that it would be easier to do the needle, for example, and also just to help manage his symptoms. So one of the things that he has suggested was that we try a long fast, and after this long fast, my brother started the carnivore diet.
okay.
And during that period of time, we start to see a steady and markable improvement in his symptoms leading into the time that he took the SCIG. So for like about a week or two before we took it, every day he seemed to be doing a little bit better. And then once we finally get the SCIG in him, it goes all the way back down. And it stayed very, very negative for about like a month or two afterwards. So that's not something that we view as beneficial for him or safe for him going in the future. We know that there are many people.
Who swear by it and it's worked well for them, and it's not to discredit that treatment at all.
Oh,
It's
right.
just
Right.
like it didn't work for me. We tried it, gave it the college the good college try, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
I'm still doing the carnivore diet. I've lost about 50 pounds. I started it because I heard of Jordan Peterson and Michaelia Peterson, how they both have autoimmune disorders and how it basically put that into remission. I kind of wanted the carnivore diet to put my autoimmune response to the COVID shot into remission, but it hasn't. But like Christian said, it and as my family has observed it, like it has what's the word? It has proven to be helpful and it has proven to be useful. So I'm gonna continue to do it as long as it is useful, and shedding a few pounds isn't doesn't hurt either. I could certainly use that.
Yeah, it's really, I know that's certainly something that I hear a lot as far as diet changes helping with symptoms, at least, with the weight loss and maybe in a prolonged state of that, they talk about how it can change the mitochondria function and things like that. So maybe that will, eventually lead to a change long term. I'd like to go back to, Christian and Andre, your family. What I mean, I have to say, I marvel at how you're still functioning and how your family's still functioning. Can you give us a picture of what does this look like? I mean, how is this, obviously you're had to drop out of school, and I'm also going to put a link to your website or where you write on Medium. You are such an articulate writer. Um, how the way you write, people can just feel, the emotion. You're an exceptional writer, and I think, but was it you and
Thank
both
you.
Christian were a master's in English or pursuing a master's in English?
I
Just
was pursuing a bachelor's in English
okay.
at when I was being when I got vaccinated. I have an associate's degree from Community College of Philadelphia. I
Okay.
was at Chestnut Hill College, where I had just finished a semester at Chestnut Hill College in their bachelor program, the summer that I got my shots. Um, but
And Christian,
yeah, we're both.
were you also in school?
At the time, I had just finished a work study program where I had an internship and got a job. I
Okay.
was working on whether or not I was going to be going back to school, but then all these things kind of piled up on top of each other, and had to carry had to carry forward according to our situation.
So you are basically Andre's full-time caregiver? I
Yeah,
mean, wow, that's just tell me about that.
I feel a lot of complicated feelings about it. I love my brother very much. I'm very grateful that I've been able to support him so far. But the one overarching sentiment I have about it is that it's infuriating. not taking care of him, but the entire nature of the situation.
The fact that like he has to, you
Not
know.
just the fact that I have to, it's the way that other people who are responsible and should be acting responsible are choosing to be neglectful and make everything much more complicated than it has to be. Earlier, you mentioned about the steroids, right? How that helped you from listening to Dr. Corey. Steroids is one of the first things we recommended within the first month of his illness.
And
And
doctors shot it down.
they shot it down, saying that they didn't want to introduce toxins into his body. I mentioned the carnivore diet very early on. There were lots of tests that were doable and at completely at our expense. Nothing that would require specialized facilities or anything like that for him to go to outside of the norm that we requested. And the doctors involved, they chose to dance around it, try to avoid accountability and responsibility. They would charge us for visits and try and kick us out before we could actually get the results of our tests. Um, when we would go to Mayo Clinic or to other hospitals, you would think that having his medical record and having the highest amount of technology available to communicate about what this patient needs and how to manage it, that they would be prepared, and they never were, and it always ended up being mostly my responsibility. Even when we went to DC, we were trying to walk at first. Like I was pushing him in his wheelchair
To meet Senator Casey's office.
to go to Senator Casey's office, but his wheelchair broke
In the street.
in the street. So I had to push his wheelchair half broken down what was effectively the length of multiple blocks. And when we finally made it into the building, the most astonishing thing was that people obviously saw
And heard, because
and
like
heard.
you're like it was the front right wheel that broke, so it's just metal dragging across the floor.
And they parted like the Red Sea, you know? And I'm not a big guy. I'm a strong person, but I'm not a big guy. And it's obvious when people are suffering and struggling, you should help them.
And nobody did, even when you got into the halls of.
Well, not when we got into the halls. We finally ended up in another senator's office.
It was when we went to Senator Ron Johnson's.
Oh, well, there you would
office
have gotten help.
Yeah, they immediately got help. They got one of the wheelchairs from the like that the senators use. Let me borrow it until the end of my stay in DC. We had somebody return it to the building, but like the office of the senator who represents my state and like his staff did nothing for me, even though I was all slumped over because I was flaccid like pretty much all day, like you could see in the video of Christian giving reading my testimony in my stead. And like my wheelchair is broken, and they expressed like no concern, no sympathy, no common human decency. Go to Senator Ron Johnson's office. I meet the man, shake his hand, and like immediately his staff is at work trying to get me into a new chair.
Yeah, they got me a cup of water.
Yeah, the senator that has been, villainized and excoriated for, the man of misinformation, who is truly the only one who is standing up for all of you. And I guess, you have lived this every single day. You see this new administration coming. I mean, I've been interviewing people, pretty much since the very beginning, these unbelievable stories that you guys live through. I don't know what it's going to take where people not only are going to see it, but will actually believe the reality of what has taken place. Do you think that will ever happen? What is your feeling now with, we've got RFK in there, we've got, Jay Bhattacharya. I've spoken directly with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who is to head the NIH. I've spoken directly to him about you, the vaccine injured. He knows that you exist. He knows how terrible this has been. But do you think anything can actually be done?
I'll believe what happens.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. I try at this point, especially to um, more so watch than listen
Mhm.
to the behaviors of politicians and medical people, because everybody, for better and for worse, has their in. They have everyone's counterbalancing a variety of complicated situations that allow them to move forward. And politics are messy. I don't like them very much. I respect people who do their best, but even in doing your best, it doesn't mean you'll get across everything that you want. I believe that just like at the beginning of the pandemic, there are people who either by natural temperament and heart understood the nature of the situation and were compassionate. There were people who, because their hands were forced by pure circumstance, they had to acknowledge that things were bad. There are people who, because the money's too good, they'll never be honest about it. And there are people that will feel guilty and they'll do what they do. I believe that normal people, as long as they can see it as something that's not overtly detrimental to their best interest, I think people can be persuaded, because the language that I hear a lot of times is that uh, when people specifically in this space, because this is the most recent iteration of the issue that I'm aware of, right, talk about the lack of informed consent, the numbers and correlations with detrimental health outcomes related to certain vaccines, what a lot of people hear is that it is effectively like anti-intellectualism.
Mm.
They assume and prescribe onto you this idea that you're being a Luddite and that you don't trust the science, for example. But if it can be demonstrated that everyone took or didn't take the vaccine for whatever reason they did. Some people took the vaccine for a good reason, some people took it for bad, some people didn't take it for good reasons, and some people didn't take it for reasons that, if they were explained, some people would question, which is completely fair. But if people can understand that our concern with the vaccine issue, and not just the vaccine issue, with the lives of our families, of our friends, the ability of people to run their businesses and have just healthy lives and have children and do the things that they want to do.
And the accountability of the institutions that we vest our power in.
Yeah, that it's a part of what makes a healthy society, not something that's holding us back from it. People can be persuaded. But part of that has to do with how comfortable people are with admitting when they're wrong, and more than when they're wrong, when they're tricked. Because that's
Right.
another big part of this. People probably feel very guilty for having been logicked into a situation that makes everybody, except for those in power, in regards to who takes the heat of it, look like the bad guy. The people who took the vaccines and are sick, oh, you're an idiot. Why would you do that? You knew that there could have been complications.
You just like I've gotten not many, but some messages, and I've seen plenty of people like unvaccinated people who are like degrade people who chose to take this shot. Like you got what you deserve. Basically, you fell for the obvious lie. Uh,
It's terrible.
it's
Yeah,
it's terrible. It's sad, but like all
So sad.
you can see why somebody would say something like that. And like there are times where like I'm gonna be like honest with you. You asked me like how I carry on through this situation earlier. It is messy. The way people see me in interviews all the time is how I'd like to be all the time. This is like Christian said, infuriating. Is dehumanizing because like I'm literally a prisoner in my body. Nothing screams masculine like limp and flaccid, right? And like I'm in my mid 20s now. I don't have a job. I'm I don't have a way to like make a lot of money for myself. I'm highly dependent on everybody on my family. I still live at home with my mom. I love her. I'm not like it's not
No, I
but
get
like
it.
and also economics, but like you know like the metrics that somebody would expect somebody of my age to accomplish, that I expected myself to accomplish years ago, I literally can't. Um, and it I bring all this up because like I the thing that propels me, that propels my family, and allows us like to do this, do the things that you've cited and are going to be linking into the description or whatever, is our faith and our trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. That is the He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life, and it is only through Him that we have strength to endure, and it is only through Him that we have the strength to persevere and the hope that just not hope, not like the fancy wishy-washy, oh maybe I really wish. It's hope as in like the expectation that justice will be done, even if it's not necessarily in the next year or the next 5. It will be done. Evil will not evil cannot and will not go unpunished indefinitely. Uh so that's kind of my take on the whole situation. Like, to answer a couple of your questions, how do I push through this?
Right.
What's like what do I expect or see like in the next couple of years? I hope that this administration lives up to what he's been saying, what's been promising. The Doge has been doing an excellent job of rooting out corruption. It's a shame that so many people are reacting to it with arrest Elon Musk. I don't like the guy personally. I don't trust him, but the work he's doing is like
Seems to be
objectively is objectively good work. Exposing government waste should be like applauded, and pointing out the criminals and traitors who are uh embezzling millions and billions and trillions of taxpayer dollars, robbing us blind when the economy has already been in crisis for so much of this century, right? Like that is objectively good work he's doing. I hope that the focus of that Maha in general, like that it benefits the entire nation, because health is one of it. I said in an open in like a public forum with the FDA about like vaccine safety and efficacy, that like cancers and heart disease and all that kind of stuff, they kill us. Those things kill Americans the most. They kill Americans more than Americans kill Americans. So like help pushing for a healthier nation in general is an overall good push, is a good thing to have happen. Hasn't really happened, I think, since JFK with
Yeah.
his with
The
like with his
presidential award of, fitness and whatnot.
yeah, the
Yeah.
push for higher degree of physical education in
Right.
public schools. That hasn't like, so that stuff is good, but like Christian said, like politics are messy. A lot of people get tied up in money and agendas and deadlines and just the grinding gears of government, of Congress, of Senate, trying to get things in bills, on the floor, in debate, at the president's desk for him to sign. It's gonna take time. It might take longer than his term. Uh, I'm I'm a little bit more optimistic simply because the president is the president now. Like
Right.
as you said, the American people have spoken. There are enough people that are fed up with all of this nonsense that we're seeing some massive sea changes happening. So hopefully with if we keep doing the work that we're doing,
Right.
getting it's like I said before, just spreading awareness, getting the information out there, more and more people will see because the proof is irrefutable,
Right.
right?
Right.
Well, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was a politician of sorts during the Nixon administration, and he spoke about how Watergate convinced him of the veracity of the gospel because he was like 12 men
Oh,
in the
yeah.
first
Right.
century AD, right? Spent 40 years basically saying that they had seen Jesus risen from the dead, and every single one of them died horrible deaths at the hands of the Roman government. And he said, I saw 12 of the most powerful men in this country try to uphold a lie for like what 2 3 weeks, and they folded.
Hold it. Yeah. I
You
forget. He
know,
was his name is Chuck, the author, or he started Breakpoint. I can't remember. Anyway, yes, I know who you're talking about. And yes, that's absolutely right. That's because he went to prison and then he became prolific writer really of the gospel, And um so in regards to politics in the sense as far as getting help for the injured, did you file a CICP claim? Have you been able to get any compensation, or are you like everybody else, rejected?
I filed a CICP claim within a year, and they just started writing back to me to say that they have the report in their records and that they're starting to review my case. And that I actually that also that needs to provide more information, proof of vaccination, and all the other mumbo jumbo and all that. But like, I got injured in 2021. I filed by June of 2022. It is now March of 2025, and you are just now writing back to me. You
It's
know,
awful. It's just, again, all, as you said, the evidence is irrefutable. There is so much evidence of the failure of these programs. There's so much evidence. I mean, we had 16, 17 governors who had gotten together to write, or attorney generals, to write a letter. Well, at the time, H.H. Becerra, this was kind of right before Trump was, well, no, it was right after Trump was elected, but RFK hadn't taken over his spot at the HHS, saying, what is going on? How come all of these people have been rejected? And I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to who've literally lost everything. They couldn't get disability from their job. They've lost their jobs. They don't have insurance. They've lost their entire life savings. They don't know, okay, do I spend money on medication or do I spend money on food? And like people just say, oh, that's all BS. Those are just made up stories. I was so angry because where I live, I try to keep everyone informed, all my local, and senators and representatives and the health department. And last month I was at the health department. I gave all the people of our county's health department a copy of Bree's book for them to read and whatever. And so I went to the last meeting, and one of the doctors there said, oh, in regards to this book, I read it, so the rest of you don't have to. It's just really a bunch of drama. And I mean, just totally discounted it. And I'm just sitting there. Thankfully, I had an opportunity to speak later in the meeting where I just called him out and said, I object to your gross misrepresentation of what, you have just characterized Bree and React 19 and all the other injured. And I said, and that is why we have vaccine hesitancy. And I said, that is why I'm going to RFK's confirmation next week, because this was back in February. But I don't know. And I mean, you live through this, going to doctors who just, oh, it's FND, it's in your mind. I am not even injured. And I just get so fuming anger. And I commend you for your ability, I mean, as a Christian as well, that you've been able to just be like, okay, I'm just, God is on the throne, and but to just not rage with like, ah,
oh, I have, just not in front of them.
okay.
you know, in these four walls, a lot of messy things have happened. But like I get back to due north eventually, but this is rough. This is really rough. When you experience deep suffering, it really it strikes at the core of your understanding of, or what you think is your understanding of how reality works.
Mhm.
And that is something that, full disclosure, I have been grappling with. I've been re- reading and studying and meditating on the word, and like seeking wise counsel from my family as much as possible, because this is, to put it lightly, this is not fun. To put it very lightly, this is not fun.
And if I could
Does your
comment,
church support? I mean, do you have a church community that is supportive?
we have church members that come and they pray with us and they talk, but it's a very difficult situation to deal with. One of the comments I wanted to make earlier is, of course, we spend a lot of time talking about money, economics, money changing hands and the financial burden that it puts on people, but there's a large mental health burden. And there are
Hmm.
skills and tactics needed to approach those things that a lot of times people aren't educated on, you know? And there's skills that you have to develop in time that are made more complicated when really, really bad things happen. So having several people praying for you and you praying for yourself and reading scripture is incredibly important, but also diving deep into what it means to grieve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've
And
read On Death and Dying, because my mom pointed out to me, like a couple of years ago, like you have to, like, you're not dying, but like the past that you had and the future that you imagined for yourself, it's not, it's changed now. you
yeah,
know I'm not the same person that walked into that Rite Aid in June of 2021. And
we've had a lot of very difficult conversations about things, and just to like some emotive illustrations. It would have been easier if you had gotten shot a few years ago. We know how to deal with a gunshot wound. It would have been easier if you had gotten stabbed or hit by a car. It would have been easier if you had cancer.
yeah, that's what Sean Barkovich said.
Right.
Like cancer patients are better off, like all the funding and the awareness.
The last
And
thing
just
you want to
before.
be is a vaccine injured person because there's
Yeah.
no help.
And when it comes to trying to get, like, there are lots of believers that love Christ and love you, but don't know how to deal with that complex issue. And that makes it very difficult because even though the blood of Jesus goes across political lines, all of our ideas don't.
Right. So
And
you guys really need, you both are so articulate and have such a wisdom about you, your age, your experience, all that you've gone through. I don't know if you've considered writing a book, but I mean, I feel that you have such a level of wisdom and again, just the gift that you have, we're all given different gifts, and I just feel that just in following you and listening to you for the last, however long it's been, and the things that I've watched over the years, I just really feel that you have a powerful message. And I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but
I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that.
I was actually asked a few years ago by a journalist to write something about like what my perspective is as a caregiver, and I just haven't been able to do it.
well, I would encourage you to ask the Holy Spirit to help you with that because, I mean, there's power in story, and you guys know that because story reflects life. And speaking of story, we've got this movie coming out next week, premiering in Hollywood at the Santa Monica Film Festival. Have you seen any portion? Tell us about this movie, how you got involved with the movie, a little bit about it. I'm flying out. I'm going to be there, but I don't really know anything more than what I've seen in the trailer.
So I watched the trailer. It was very moving. Matthew Guthrie, the producer, the filmmaker, the guy behind the film, he came over to he I can't quite remember how it was that we got involved in the.
Facebook. He messaged us. Oh,
he
Bree.
he messaged Bree. Bree
Okay.
messaged us.
Okay.
We linked up. He came over to our house. he filmed me one day for like an interview, and then he filmed me a couple of days later just like to get B-roll, but it was like all day, and like that day I was like having really bad episodes. The gym mats were out on the floor in the living room. It was rough, and he was crying. I cried. He cried. He's a very um excuse me, intellectual, intelligent, and caring person. I have deep respect for him. I have great respect for the work that he's done. I'm really glad that he was moved to make this project, and that it's finally come to fruition. Because what was it? It was 2022, I think, when he came over to film.
Yeah, we
Right.
serve other states.
Right, but he was traveling all over the country. That there is God's work. And
Right.
I said as much to him.
He talked about it that at the very beginning he started to have like a sense a year or two beforehand that he needed to buy all this camera equipment that he couldn't afford. And then all of a sudden, once he bought all this camera equipment, he had an investor call and say that they wanted him to work on this documentary. So he himself was saying he felt like it was a call of God to
Wow.
make it and to handle things the way that he's doing it. So I pray for him, and I hope to see him again at some point. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Have you seen more than just the trailer?
No,
Or so you have not yet seen it. You had said kind of before, we hit record on this podcast, you said that maybe you'd be able to get out to the Texas showing or
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
that's
maybe.
an idea, but we'll have to see how it works out.
We're
Yeah, give
still working out logistics. It's just so many things that we'd have to like line up, put all our ducks in a row for it to work. Because I'm, what was it? I'm a perfect storm of like just medical
obviously, yeah.
disaster, and
Unreal.
getting me anywhere is a struggle.
That would
Like
be a
and,
movie
and
in
getting me
itself.
from the West Coast, that's gonna be quite the feat.
Right.
I hope it can get done, because I really wish that I'd be able to get that I would be able to be at the red carpet with you guys on the 15th, but I've had to accept that's just not in the cards for me. Hopefully, I can make it to Texas. And Matt said that if I can't make it to Texas, if all else fails, he'll make sure to get me a private link so I can watch it live, watch the premiere live
Oh,
at
good.
home, so that
Good.
I don't miss out. So
Good. Well, I hope you invite a lot of people over and yeah, I just again I hope that it's I hope that it will have an impact. And again, the more that we can share these things out and the more that, you know, we, pray that people would believe that this is actually happening. What is it like? What is it that you would most want people to know, who are listening in, because I share this with lawmakers. I share my interviews with public health officials. Obviously, Injured will be watching it. And what is it that you would most want people to know, to understand, and to do?
hmm. God is watching. As Lin-Manuel Miranda put it in his musical Hamilton, history has its eyes on you. God has his eyes on all the paths of man, and he will repay each one for his deeds, whether good or evil. To the lawmakers and people in power who might see this, you are responsible for the people who are under your charge, and you are held accountable by not just by the people, but by God, to do well in your charge, to be a good steward of that. I'm unabashed in my faith. I'm unabashed in my views, and I'm unabashed in my belief in justice, earthly and divine. Uh, and right action, human decency is an absolute necessity. It is an absolute necessity. For those who are injured, there is hope, there is healing, There are people out there who care, and as long as we continue to uplift our voices and share and speak the truth will set us free, and the truth will set those who are under deception free. Because the past 4 years has been a campaign of disinformation, which is just a fancy way of saying a lot of people have been saying a lot of lies for a very long time. But and again, I can't remember who said this, but the quote goes, "You don't have to defend the truth. The truth is like a lion. Just let it out, and it'll defend itself." We're letting the truth out. When a lion roars, everything else in the vicinity is like, what? What? Holy crap! The lion's outside. If I'm a gazelle, I'm running because they're hungry and I'm tasty. So let me get out of here and make myself scarce. Um, the truth will prevail. It might not happen as soon as we like. I would have liked it. I would have liked it to have happened, like as I would rather this not have happened at all, right? But now that it has happened, look at how many people have banded together in the name of truth and in the name of justice to bring about healing, caring, reform, change, see change to our government, to our society. Because this goes down to the individual level. Every single what was it? In one of my conversations with Christian, he talks about how evil in the world is a group effort. In World War II, it happened not just because Adolf Hitler was Adolf Hitler and he was angry at the Jews. The Germans were angry. The None of the other European nations wanted to take the Jews in as refugees. The United States didn't want to participate in any of that.
And the United States government's eugenics program inspired the literary ideas that fed Hitler's mind after he had been abused by his father and was living out of resentment and junk and reading a bunch of insanity to deal with his bad feelings. So we simplify the narrative a lot to think that the Allied powers were the good guys and the Axis powers were the bad. The Germans in World War II were objectively evil, but so was a lot of the rest of the world. It's just that in the end, some people made certain decisions that had them come out a little bit better. And even afterwards, you have Project Paperclip and different things where instead of the governments of the world actually allowing the Nuremberg trials to go forth as they should have, they were like, we can't let all these bright eugenicist minds go to waste. So they brought them into our government programs so we can have rockets and whatnot. There's a lot of different things like that.
All that to say, evil is a group effort, but so is good. Good is a group effort. The group effort that we're doing is going to produce its fruit in due time, and the story that we all have and that we're all sharing is powerful, and it's reaching critical mass, in my opinion. We're reaching a point where soon enough somebody's gonna have to do something. I don't know what that something is. I don't know who that somebody is, but we will not be ignored any longer. I believe that the Follow the Silence film is going to be very instrumental in that, along with the other documentaries, what was it? The anecdotals.
Right. And you were in that
Crisis.
too, weren't you? Right.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, the Unseen Crisis.
I was in that. The Vax 3 Authorized to Kill, I was in that. And what was it, Vax 1 and 2? I wasn't in those, but the documentary series that the Children's Health Defense has been putting out, all those stories, all these people, all these voices culminating into a giant symphony of truth. We're too many people from too many places, from too many walks of life, with too many different like ideologies, belief systems, etc., to like just to have met together, wrung our hands together, but let's just flood the news with this with this misinformation, these lies. This happened to people, and good will always prevail. um and the thing that everyone I want most to know, whoever is watching, regardless of how much power you do or don't have, how much good you are or aren't doing, there is peace and fellowship in Christ. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, he has offered himself freely so that you may be at peace and at fellowship with him. If you are sinning, repent and turn to him. If you think you're not sinning, repent and turn to him. Turn to God. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. And the book of Psalms says that his ear is inclined, God's ear. He listens in on those who are crushed in spirit, the sick, the poor, the downtrodden, and the outcast. He sees, he hears, and he will act. It's something that I've been struggling with. Like you see and hear when we act. He says so himself. The Lord is not slow as some count slowness, but is patient, so that the guilty may come to repent. Because what was it? In Ezekiel, as surely as I live, says the Lord, I do not take pleasure in the destruction of evildoers, but I take pleasure in the repentance of sinners. When people turn away from evil and turn to God, turn to good, that's what makes him happy. People think, people who don't believe what I believe religiously, a lot of them think that God is just a vindictive moral monster that sends people to hell, and he gets, kicks and giggles out of that. The last thing he wants is for somebody to end up there. Hell doesn't even exist for us. It was meant for the devil and his angels, the ones who betrayed God, right? That's what hell is for. It wasn't meant for us at all. He wants us to be with him. He wants to work his love, his grace, his peace, his transformative power through us. And if you repent and believe in Christ, you will be saved. You will be changed. You will find peace and joy and the strength to endure. We're not promised ease. We're not even promised the next second, but we're promised the strength to endure whatever comes. And that's what's been keeping me going. It's a struggle, but struggles make us strong if we let them. Struggles make us strong if we let them. And I believe I'm becoming a stronger person than I was 3 and 3/4 years ago when I got injured by this mutagenic serum. Uh but yeah,
Well,
go to God. Go to
I
God. That's what I want everybody know. Go to God.
I think those are profound words coming out of a young man who have suffered so greatly. And I really just in awe again of your continual perseverance and that you continue to shine this light of hope in the midst of your own darkness. But as you say, Christ is there, and that is our eternal hope. And I seriously hope that you will be enlightened, that God will enlighten your eyes in understanding of how to write a book, because I think it's in you. I think it's in you. It's in Christian, and I will look forward to the day when it's published. So, Andre, Christian, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to speak with me today. I just, wish you, not wish you, I pray that you will Yeah, that you will prosper in all things, even as your soul prospers, as it says in 1 John. So, any last words? I think you really left the. Oh, Christian, you got something there.
Yeah. You asked, what do I want everyone to remember? Or what do I want them to know? The two things I have is don't forget, and it's never over.
Yep.
Um, the not the way I see the situation with the vaccine injured, and not just the vaccine injured, the fact that it happened and the way that things transpired, but the cultural situation that has people going against their families and
Mm.
going against themselves, or people like I have an uncle who he was working with someone who was vaccine injured, and they said that they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to increase vaccine hesitancy.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's some extreme levels of self betrayal that you would allow yourself to be physiologically ruined for indefinitely for the
Excuse me.
sake of a narrative that does what for you? You know, um, there's a lot of things happening, and the number one weapon being used, just like our stories are our strength, stories are the things they're used to manipulate and guide people into their own deaths. And the first story that you have to believe is that you don't exist. You know what I mean? Not in like the sense where you're sorry. There's a self denial that people with bad interests want you to live in, where your entire concept of your identity, of God, of your neighbors, of your friends, of your future, of your past is malleable according to whatever they want for you to do.
Or I'll call it self annihilation.
Yeah, self annihilation, self negation. It's it's a very vile thing, and so that's one aspect of it. You don't want to forget who you are, and you don't want to forget your life story, even if it's painful, because if you have the courage to face your life story with God and with determination and with continuation, you can draw things out of there that will make you in the world much stronger than you otherwise could have been. But
That's very well said. Very well said.
another another thing to not forget is that the situation happened. Just pure and simple. However it goes in the future, even if we get justice, this I don't think it will be the last time people have to be concerned about something like this. You
Yeah.
know, once something like this has been successfully pulled off, people will try it again. And there are all kinds of things like a lot of the tension in society on both sides of the political aisle are about the lies that they believe their opponents are telling them, whether it's lies about God, lies about sexuality and gender, lies about political money, you know, I mean, lies about which political side of the aisle is responsible for the racism and classism and whatever.
Which food you should eat.
Yeah, which food you should eat, who are the oligarchs, all this stuff. We have to remember that these things are a part of the human life cycle and that we have to continue to face them. It's not something you can wrap up in a paper bag and throw away, even if we are able to succeed. So don't forget, and it's never over. And also, when it comes to facing like the hard things in your life, you have to not forget the bad things because in the bad things, there's truth, and the truth will set you free. And utilizing the truth to set you free will ensure that your story doesn't end with just the bad.
Right.
But it's very hard. I have a lot of empathy for people. Um, I feel like my life has very much been ruined, and it not completely, but in a lot of ways, it's very destructive to have to watch people suffer perpetually um, without any kind of clear conclusion to it. Because I think the worst part about my job isn't that it's hard; it's that it's a problem I can't fix. You know what I mean? Typically, you're being paid
Right.
for like
Right. That's
competence or
yeah.
accomplishing a goal. You know what I mean? You're implementing a new structure at your job. You're building a railway. You're completing a commission. It's just perpetually trying to keep ourselves from falling over the edge. But something I draw a lot of hope from is seeing how similar that is to everyone else. Even if you're not vaccine injured, even if you never took a vaccine in your life, we all have to support each other. We all have the worst days of our lives. And it takes the same kinds of skills to deal with the worst days of our lives, no matter where we are. So I just pray that people have peace and that they support each other, that they remember to listen to themselves, listen to God, remember that their heart is valuable, and do their best.
3:15.
Yeah.
Take another dose.
Okay.
He learns for.
Sorry about that.
Well,
So
no,
good.
and I just thank you for, again, your wise words. You are two young men who obviously are probably very, very different from where you were 4 years ago. But it's, it's that refining fire and that's bringing out the gold. And you have many years ahead. And I will look forward to being in touch. We will certainly have you there in our hearts on Saturday. And yeah, just again, thank you so much. And I just thank you for your light, both of you, your light. Even in this intense struggle, you are providing that light. And I know many are blessed by it. So, oh, lastly, is there any way people can get in touch with you? I just like through Facebook or X
I'm
or
Andre Cherry on Facebook. I'm at dre.cherry112 on Instagram.
okay,
You can send me friend requests on Facebook, DM
okay,
me on Instagram. All the videos that you and the articles that you said that you're going to link,
I'm
I
gonna
have in
put,
my link tree on both
okay,
accounts,
okay,
so people can peruse them at their pleasure. I'll make sure to add this to the list
okay.
once it gets put up. Uh,
I'm not
Very good.
present.
I'll put all those links in the show. Anything that you want me to put in the show notes too, just send over and I'll put that in. So, well, thank you once again, and let's go forward.
Thank you for having us, and it's been a pleasure and an honor talking with you.
And you as well. Thank you.